Aloha and welcome to this practice WOD. Experience 28 is called the position of the element, and this is a follow-on to the last WOD where we were looking at the 5 problems every software engineer should be able to solve in less than an hour by Santiago Valderrama. And I did a little more poking around his blog, and I found this other one he has posted called the position of the element, which he says it's something simple, and I agree, it's quite simple, and I think it makes kind of a good little, good little practice problem for you guys. Nothing too intellectually challenging, but does give you the opportunity to write a little bit of JavaScript. And so you can take a look at this page. Look at his solution. I don't really care. It's not that hard to figure it out. I would say don't look at his solution first. Try to figure it out by yourself, because obviously when you get into the actual WOD on Thursdays, you're not going to be able to look at solutions first. So it's good for your brain to actually try to solve these problems, without knowing the solution at least once. And then if you can't get it or it's taking too long, then go ahead and look at the solution and then code it yourself so that you can actually do that. That's what I recommend. The other thing to note is that, the JavaScript programming is deliberately pretty simple. It's just going to be a single function. So we're not yet at the point in the semester where we're building big systems. We're just still trying to get our JavaScript chops together, and also we're trying to get better at using GitHub, Git, and IntelliJ. Primarily IntelliJ at this point. I think that's the big thing that I really want you to get comfortable with. So by all means, do not use Emacs or Vim or TextPad or Eclipse or whatever IDE that you're that you feel comfortable with for these assignments, because in the actual WODs I'm going to be looking at your your laptops and making sure that you're using IntelliJ. That's a requirement for this class. So use this as an opportunity. I know there's a learning curve with IntelliJ. I know it's going to feel uncomfortable at first. It was uncomfortable for me at first. I used Eclipse for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years straight before I switched to IntelliJ. So I feel your pain when, about the movement to a new IDE. But you gotta, it's important as a software developer that you move on to new technologies as time goes on and they become available. So, regardless of whether or not you think IntelliJ at the end of the semester is actually better than Eclipse or NetBeans or, Atom or whatever else it is that you actually personally prefer, that's another whole issue. You should be able to get comfortable using a particular IDE over the course of the semester, even if you don't really like it, okay? That's my attitude, all right? Because it's just a good thing to be comfortable, with different technology stacks. Okay, so anyway, that said, sermon done for right now. Well, we're going to create a function called position. It accepts a sorted array of integers and a target value. The position function returns the index where the target value is found, or if the target value is not found, returns the index where it would be if it was inserted in order. There won't be any duplicate values in the array. That's nice. The array is sorted. That's nice. So if we've got an array 1, 3, 5, 6, so that's position, 1 is at position 0, position 1, position 2, position 3. So 5 should be, it's found here, which is at position 0, 1, 2. And if our target value is 2, it should be inserted right at this position, kind of before the 3. That's position 1. 7 should be returned, at position 0, 1, 2, 3, right after position 3, which is 4, and so forth. And 0 should be returned at the first element. Okay, so that's what we got to do. And so here's the actual WOD. So we'll start the timer. And then we're going to create an empty GitHub repo called position. Okay, so we'll go to GitHub, and we'll say new repo, and we'll call it position, and we'll say readme, create a repo, clone in desktop. It's going to put in position under Philip M. Johnson. Sure, that sounds good. Cloning. Okay, it's all done, so I'll hide that one. We'll go back to our thing, and then we're going to create an IntelliJ static web project called position within our local position repo directory. So I'll bring up IntelliJ idea. Again, this should load within 10 seconds. If it doesn't, there's some instructions in the IDE module you can use to try to make sure that your ID, to make sure that IntelliJ comes up within 10 seconds. Create new project, static web. Where are we going to find it? It's going to be in Philip M. Johnson position. Call it position, that's good. Finish. And I'm sorry, I gotta get this guy to be in this window because I've got a cinema display. Okay, and then let's see, we got position. So create two files, index.html and position.js. The index file should load position.js. Okay, we won't use underscore. Bummeroo. I'm sad about that, but oh well. Sometimes it doesn't work. So we'll make we'll create an HTML file called index.html, and then we'll create a JavaScript file called position.js. Okay, and then we're going to do control left and right arrow, go back and forth between tabs. You can also do propeller E to bring up the recent files if you want that. Either way, you can do it. This time I'll probably use the tab one. Okay, so the next thing we got to do is we got to put in a script, source equals, and then it's going to ask, it's going to complete what could go in there. That's position, and then we'll type that, and it auto completes the script. So that's that. And so I think that's all we got to do. And so here, what I'm going to do is, this is yellow because it doesn't like just the default value. What the heck happened here? Oh, because I had, okay, so I'll say implement the position function described in, and then let's find that blog posting, copy link address. Okay. Okay, so function position, and it's going to take an array of nums and then the target num. So that's the past values. And let's see, we gotta. So we're going to iterate through this. So basically, what we're going to need is we're going to need to have a cursor. That's kind of a common term for these things. These indexes, pointers into arrays, and we're going to say while nums cursor. So the idea is we're going to kind of start at the beginning and go through this array and say while it's less than or equal to num. So that's one thing we'd like to, if we find the number, or if we get past the target number, we want to stop at that point. The other thing that we want to do, whoops, that's not going to work, is we want to say while num is less, sorry, while cursor is less than nums.length. So we definitely don't want to exceed the length of the array. That would we get an out of bounds error, right? So we're going to go through this loop, and we're searching for these two things. And I think that the thing we'll try is we'll just say, well, if nums cursor equals num, so that's a good situation, right? If boy, why'd that happen? So if we're at the element that we want, okay, so if the value of the array at the cursor is equal to our target value, then we return where the cursor is right now, because that's one situation. Now, how about if the cursor is actually greater than the value? Okay, so else if nums cursor is greater than num, then we're going to return, so if it's gotten in this loop, then we'll return cursor -1. But that can't happen, right? So what we'll do is we'll just keep incrementing the cursor. Okay. Okay, now we're going to get out of this loop. So while we're in the loop, if the cursor is equal to the number, we'll return it. And then we'll increment the cursor. And now at this point in time, either we're at the end of the array, or we're past the value. But in either case, we want to return the current value of the cursor. Okay. So, is this right? Yeah. Okay. So, let's see how this works. Let's test it out. So we'll say var test nums, and let's use the ones that we're supposed to have. This is 1, 3, 5, 6. Okay. And then we're going to say console.log position test nums, and what's our first one? 5. Okay, so now let's go to here, and remember we do an option F2, we bring up Chrome, type return, and then we do a command option J to open up the developer tools, and we see that in fact we returned 2 just like we wanted to. Okay, so we're going to have to call with 270. So let's go back to our here, and then we'll do propeller D, and it's 270. And then we'll go back to here, and then we'll say option F2, Chrome. Okay, and so now we see that we printed a 2140. 2140. Sweet. Okay, so our position function works correctly. So we want to commit the finished program to GitHub. Let's just take one last look at it, make sure that it looks okay. Sure, that seems reasonable. So let's go to GitHub, and we'll say finished initial version, commit and sync master. All right, and we're going to slide in right at about 10 minutes. Oh, we should check that our code is on GitHub. There it is. Okay. So we got it in 10 minutes. Nice little wad there. I think, you know, obviously, most of the time that we spent was all the kind of fiddling around, going back and forth the different windows and running the code and looking at the output and all that stuff. And really, that is my intent for this set of initial WADs is for you to get real comfortable with those mechanics of just setting up a project, running some code, inspecting the output, going back and forth and seeing what happens when you're using JavaScript. And the general way that you use JavaScript, it's unlike Java in the sense that you generally use the Java environment in a particular browser as opposed to install. I mean, you can use like Node.js and run Java on your server, but for this class, we're going to be using mostly at this point this kind of client-side browser-based Java environment. And that's a really useful thing to understand because, out in the real world, that a lot of the time that's what you're going to be wanting to do. Okay, so get good at this. If you're taking more than 15, 18 minutes, you should probably try it again so that you can kind of zip through this pretty quickly, and you'll be in a good shape for the WAD on Wednesday.